Morning, everyone. Morning. So we're going to be discussing an interesting topic today: change management between CE, engineering, and IT. Want to give credit to my counterpart, Corey Chow. He's the senior manager with Stanford Health. We worked together on this presentation and we prepared it. So I'm going to be presenting unbiased. I am an engineering manager, healthcare technology manager, but I'm going to be as unbiased as possible to represent IT properly in this presentation. So we have to be fair to understand where our weaknesses and strengths. First, logistics and disclaimer. My opinion today does not represent my employer, regardless if they like it or they don't like it. It does not represent them. So if I say something weird or want to sue me, you will sue me personally. Don't sue the organization. Please do not turn your phones off, because I know we all have responsibilities and we're doing this here. We always have something urgent happening. Actually, I'm having cut over switching network from old network to new network in my organization. I'm not going to stop and check my phone while doing the presentation, so don't worry, but I know what that means. Interrupt me as much as needed. Don't wait until the end. If something doesn't make sense, you want to dig deep in something, please interrupt me and ask. You might be given an exam at the end of the session, so you better pay attention, because otherwise, if you fail, you're buying drinks for everyone.
Yeah.
And if you get bored during the session, feel free to take a nap. My son likes to take a nap anywhere, or play games on your phone, as long as it's muted. I'm fine with that, because it means I'm not interacting with you, I'm not pulling you to pay attention, so feel free to do whatever you want. Myself, I'm not sure why I've stretched so much. I'm not that thick usually. I'm a biomedical engineering manager, healthcare technology manager with Johnson Health in North California. We have 3 organizations, 3 hospitals, and multiple outpatient centers and clinics all over North California. I have international experience, and I've been in the United States for about 10 years now. I'm a very active member in our community. Wherever there's an opportunity that they need volunteers to help, you will find me there. I'm with ACCE, with AMI, with CMIA. I push, I don't pull back, I make sure that everything is being done, and if there's a change that needs to be done and happen to our organization, to our profession, you'll find me there, right to repair. I'm an advocate for that. I'm fighting hard with the manufacturers. So, session, working together with IT to bridge the communication and process gaps. A few years ago, I would never think that there's any way we can bridge those gaps, right? And change management, disaster recovery, and converged system. We'll talk a bit about change management. I will do a very brief description of change management, and it kind of relates to what's going to come next, because change is not something that's accepted by anyone. So whenever you want to introduce change, everyone will fight you back. So we're going to. So just the quick stages of change. I'm not sure if any of you have seen this slide before. When you try to introduce a change, you already have status quo already with everyone. They like what they're doing. This is what we've been doing for the last 20 years. We don't want to change. Why are you changing? So you will get the denial, the shock. Why are you doing this? We were fine. Why are you doing this change? Why are you implementing new process? Why are you doing anything? Whether it's IT or biomed, everyone doesn't like change. They move from the denial and shock phase into the disruption phase. So at first they were denying and they were pushing back. And why? Now they're starting to disrupt it. They're angry. They're afraid. What's going to happen? I want to push back. I'm not going to facilitate this. If you're asking me to do this, I'm not going to do it. I want to go back to where I was. So with that phase, it start getting into frustration. People pushing them to go into that change, they will be frustrated. They will lose any interest in doing any work because you're forcing them to do some change. we all know when change comes in, usually it's for the best. Hopefully that someone who's introducing the change knows what they're doing. So that should be towards the best of the organization. So as you move forward and try to convince them and meet with them and discuss with them, and my tip to you, the more you involve the teams in the change and make them believe that they are the ones doing the change, the easier this will be, the curve, it will be less severe. Then they start going into looking at the exploration. Okay, so it looks like we're stuck. There's no way out of it. No matter how much I complain, change is happening whether I like it or not. So let me start exploring it. Let's see how can I take advantage of it. Start being creative and looking into accepting it. Some people will be able to move forward depending on their mentality and they're willing to accept change. And others, they will get stuck in a loop that, okay, I'm going to accept it. No, today I'm not in the mood. I want to go back. I'm frustrated. I don't like it. But then they realize that there's no way out for you. You have to go through the change. So go back and forth. We need to get them out of this loop and have them move forward, accept. And then they start seeing hope. I'm sure all of you in the last changes in the last few 5 to 10 years, you have introduced changes to your departments. And you've seen this. They start seeing hope. They start being a bit more engaged. They start kind of being enthusiastic into, okay, looks like this is working. It's actually saving us some money. It's actually making sense now that we're looking at our metrics versus doing all the PMs at once and nobody cares what's happening. Now I know what's happening. I can take care of my equipment. And I'm actually having some visibility to my leadership of what I'm doing. So it does make sense. It's like, it's helpful in a way. They start accepting it to get to the commitment and new beginning. So these are kind of just a quick, again, for any change in life has nothing to do with climate or IT. This is what's going to happen, whether with your wife, most probably you're going to start with your wife, but in your work, in anything, when you introduce change, this is going to be. I got stuck here when I first had my first baby for a while. So how do we reduce the stress of those curves going down? How do we help in eliminating that, making the change a smoother process? Communication process is the key. You have to introduce the change in a way that it makes sense to the team you're introducing the change. One of my tricks I use, I know what I need to change. I came into a department, they're in a mess, and I want to move them over here. What I do with them, like I do with my kids, which is something they don't appreciate when I compare them to my kids, but making them believe that they are the ones who's coming up with the idea for the change. Like, we have this issue, how can we fix it? So they start throwing ideas, and then I start steering those ideas towards what I need it to be. And then, let's implement this. Let's check if it works. If it doesn't work, we can go back and revisit it. So when I'm implementing change, I make them believe that it's them. It's a trick. Sometimes they know that I'm doing this, sometimes they don't, but it works. And make sure to describe what's negotiable and what's not negotiable. Sometimes you need to implement something that it's not up for discussion. We have to do this. You either do this or you might lose your job. And again, I'm sure all of you with all the financial struggles we've faced, you faced this. That would you rather do this change, or would you rather see one of your colleagues being laid off because we have to cut costs? I faced this multiple times, and it's a fact. You have to put it out. Raise issues, problems, or suggestions. Be open. Listen and tell them, we will have this issue. This is what we're going through. Do you have feedback? Bring it back. Let's see if we can improve, make it easier. Plan together. Contract commitment as you progress. And always offer support. And make sure, there's a tiny sentence here, but it's just don't let them shoot the messenger. Make sure that you're working with them and don't put yourself to be the one who's forcing them to do something that they don't like. Regardless of what the change is, they won't like it. So again, this is kind of just part of the change. And you will see how this is going to affect when we start diving into biomed versus IT. The first thing we need to address, which has been, we've been trying to be politically correct for so long, we don't address the elephant in the room, which is we don't like each other. Any IT in the room? Do you like biomed?
Yeah.
Besides your wife?
For the most part, what I find is that IT tends to hide and not want to be in the field, and biomed's a little more interactive with what they'll do, but they don't be as efficient with their time as they could be.
You're not a good case for my question. We need someone opposing me. IT do not like us.
I can be opposite from you if you want.
Biomeds, most of you are HTM, biomeds engineers. Do you like IT? Don't be politically correct. Go back to the bit. This is how you can fix it. If you say, yeah, we're working with them, it works sometimes it doesn't work, we need to go back to your basics. We don't like them.
Exactly. Some people get along with you and want to work with you.
But that person is not going to be following his processes to be helpful to you. If he follows his processes, you will not like him.
Did you put in a ticket?
Exactly.
Okay, there you go.
So, what are the biggest differences? We are event driven. We receive an event, there's an issue, we respond to the event. Our main focus to address that event. The device failing on a patient, we need to make sure that the patient is safe, the device is working as it should be, find the replacement. I don't care if there's a ticket or not. I don't care who's involved or not. I need to get this done. There's a patient, I need to make sure that he's taken care of. This is our cause. This is what we do. IT, their process is driven. Do you have a ticket? Did you submit a ticket? You would be talking to him and telling him, can you just walk with me and check the sport for me? I just want to make sure. Or did he submit a ticket? If there is no ticket for him to document his time, he's not going to do the work. If he does, he's not following his policies. So this is the difference. They follow a process. They're amazing in developing processes and following the processes. We're horrible in developing processes and following them, but we take care of the patients. This is why there's no way we can like each other. We are two different worlds and two different natures. Again, do you like IT? No. Does IT like you? Guess what? No. Is it a surprise? You'll see why. I dig deep, understand why they don't like us. We're awesome. Why do they not like us? Are they efficient?
It depends on the agency.
Are we efficient?
No.
Do we get it done? There it is.
All valid questions. Are we organized?
No,
No.
not even a little bit.
Are they organized?
Depends on the agency.
Yes, they are.
Too organized.
Too organized, that's the problem. They are too organized. And our problem, we're not organized. We don't care about organization. We care about doing what we need to do, which is a weakness.
That's the goal biomed.
Okay. We care about availability and safety. This is our focus. We don't think anything beyond that. Availability of the device for the patient and the safety of the device. Make sure that it's delivering safe treatment to the patient or safe diagnosis. The priority is security. The device is safe. Is it jeopardized, connected to the network, or you can't use it? Oh, patient might die. I don't care. You can't use it. You can't put it in. So can I unplug it? If you unplug it, I'm fine. But as long as it's connected to the network, if it has security bug or risk, or it didn't go through our evaluation process, you cannot use the device. They don't care about, do you need it? What's going to happen? Why are you needing it? It doesn't bring any bells with them. Do you know why? What is the education they get when they're doing their schooling in university or colleges? Do they get any anatomy physiology? Do they get anything related to the human body? Do they even, if you hire an IT person, no matter how professional he is, the first time into a healthcare organization, does he even understand what an ICU means? Does he know what he needs to do before going into an OR? No, it's not part of their education. They wouldn't see it. It doesn't click.
You get your see people actually on the patient rooms.
That's a different topic. So we addressed the elephant in the room. I met with my friend Tori Chow from Stanford. Okay, we have this issue. Let's talk. You as a person, I like you and respect you. Awesome. As you said, you have amazing people. But following their processes, I don't like you when you're following your processes. I don't like how you do your work. You're extremely inefficient to me. I need things done now, and you're asking me to submit a ticket. It doesn't work this way in a hospital. You can do this for my DC. I'm fine. You're waiting a couple of days before I hold the report. I have justification for my leadership why I didn't do it. But not to respond when I had a case, the anesthesia machine all-in-one is not transmitting the charts, and then now the anesthesiologist needs to chart manually. I need this done immediately. You can't wait for me to submit the ticket. So here's our perspective of IT. I know the list can be quite long, but we put the main ones here. Submit the ticket first. This is on the top of the list. This is the worst answer we would like to hear. Submit the ticket. Second one is their standard turnaround time is 2 weeks. Seriously. Submit a ticket and they tell you our turnaround time is 2 weeks. Because again, in their head, they're dealing with PCs. And if it's a PC, it's not working, it's not booting, it's slow, 2 weeks is fine.
From the IT perspective, if you have an actual best practices office, it should be 8 hours or less. And if it's a mandatory right now, you have 30 minutes. So if you have 2 week turnaround, somebody needs to be fired.
Yeah, I like that. Are you open to position? We have an open position. We have a CIO open position. Okay. They are metrics focused. They are metrics focused. Their top priority is to close the work order and document time in the work order, regardless if the work was done or not. Has anyone seen this? They will close the work order, document their time, but they didn't do the work. Seriously.
Because they have a ticking time clock that they're trying to.
Exactly. Their metrics is their job. They don't want to worry about anything else. I need to close the ticket. But you haven't done anything. You didn't fix my problem. Can you submit another ticket? Seriously? I mean, well, I have to close the ticket. I can't keep it open more than 2 days. And he approved. My IT manager that I was working with, his senior manager, he approves that, yeah, we suck in this. We worry too much about this. So none of this, he declined to say that, no, we're not like this. Everything he was approving. Lack of understanding of criticality of situations in healthcare organization. Again, goes back to their education, to their wholesome, to their mindset. How do they think? When we are dealing with a medical device, you don't see the medical device. You don't see boards and capacitors and screws and cables. You see a patient being hooked up to this device. If you have 0.1 suspicion that this device will not do what it's supposed to do, you will not release it. Because you know what's going to happen. It's going to a patient. It can affect patient's life. It can affect your kid's life, your wife's life, your mother-in-law's life. It's critical. We know that. When they're dealing with a PC, with an IT issue, with a network issue, they don't see that. They don't have the capability to see it. They are IT. They're programmed this way.
My professor, my very first biomed class, stood up and he said, if you cannot handle the fact that people's lives are in your hands, leave now.
Exactly. This is biomed. Do you think IT has ever heard this sentence? No. This is our issue with them. Another one is they treat everything like EPC. Everything for them is EPC. They did that to me. We'll give a quick example so I don't dig deep into it. Stress test. You see on the stress test that controls the thermal and captures the EKG. They treat it as a PC. So they push automatic updates to that PC. And they have a policy that they push it overnight. If it doesn't go in, if the PC is off or whatever, it tries the next night. If it doesn't go in, it tries the third night. If it doesn't go in, then it will wait until the PC is on and it will force push it into the PC. And what happens after it pushes it in? The PC needs to restart. How did I find out? I received the call that the stress test failed on the patient. What do you mean failed? It turned off. The PC is restarting. Happened in the first location, happened at the second location. And then one of the users told me, we're receiving a message. You were involved with that. We're receiving a message. Can someone catch the message before it disappears, please? Before it restarts? Luckily, it happened in the third side, and that person, he knew what's happening, and he captured the picture. And it was, updates are applied, and they're stopping. So I went to the IT. What the heck are you doing? Oh, it's a PC, it's in the domain, we have to do this. No, remove everything, put them on an exclusion list. They put them on an exclusion list. A month later, the same thing happened. You know what? Alex supports us. Alex, go to all the sites unplugged from the wall. We unplugged all that stress test from the wall because I don't trust them anymore. Because they're treating my medical device as a PC. They didn't understand anything beyond that. And that's not okay. That's my issue with them. Lastly, they're not willing to bend the rules to save a life. In our world, who cares about the rules? If there's a patient's life on the stake, we forget all the rules. Right?
And security, as white hat hackers, we hack into hospitals regularly, turn items off just to see if somebody will notice. Nobody ever does. That's how easy it is to get in, and that's why security is so important. Yeah. So if it's on the network, it needs to be kept up like that. But if you don't want to keep it up like that, you air gap it. You have patient care on one side, everything else on another, and never the twain shall meet. That's
So
the only way to stop it.
we are all 100% on board with the cybersecurity and on board with
Yep.
it. And maybe this is not towards the cybersecurity because now we have policies that you do not get a device in if it didn't pass through all the rules that is required. So it's kind of after the fact you're already in, it's on the secure network, it's been checked and cleared by IT and InfoSec and everything is good to go. But this is bending the rules to his point, like he has a good guy who's helping him with IT. That guy is bending the rules. They're not all like that. They don't like this because why? They don't have motivation. So this is my perspective or Biomet's perspective of IT. As I said, you can keep writing for the rest of the day things that you have issues with. Now, IT perspective of Biomet. What did he see? What are the issues that he had against Biomet? Why you don't like us? Why you don't like me and my team? Why you're not operating with me? Why you're not willing to bend the rules with Biomet? And I say Biomet, I cover all the product engineering, healthcare technology, whatever. It's just easier. His first one was we are unresponsive. It was a shock to me. What do you mean unresponsive? And his issue is when they're dealing with a task, they're updating the network, they're doing any configuration change, they're updating switches, whatever they're doing, and they ask Biomet for something, we're not there for them. They do the things in the middle of the night. We don't have a night shift. So yeah, we're not responsive. And if you call me in the middle of the night, I'm going to respond. They're dealing with some remote location, doing something to the network or to the device or updating something, and then they call us. I can't be responsive like that.
They ever print fire? this? Will they say, hey, we're doing these updates in 3 days?
That's the solution. But not everyone pre-plan and communicate, because this is the gap. This is where we have an issue. We had an issue towards them, they have an issue towards us. So let's dig and see what's going on. They look at us and say we're not knowledgeable from an aspect of IT specialization. Well, it's not our domain. We're not supposed to be knowledgeable in IT. We're counting on you guys. So they don't like that when they talk to us, their language. Some of my engineers, they don't get the message immediately because we don't speak the same language. We have some knowledge, but we're not experts. We do not understand IT integration to other systems. For them, they rule the world. And when I say, when we complain about an integration or we complain about stress test, it means we don't understand that integration. And it's something beyond just it's a PC or not a PC. It has to be part of this whole, like it's a cybersecurity issue. It's a big issue. You don't understand that. You don't understand how things are happening. It's a big deal, which sometimes we might fall into that trap. Does not communicate to IT, fire drill. Their issue is that we're dealing with something, suddenly we call them. I need someone right now. I have an issue with the board. I have an issue with the network. The ultrasound is not communicating. The anesthesia machine is not communicating. I need someone right now. For them, this is a fire drill. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Why didn't you submit the ticket for an idea so we can work on it and have resources ready? I told them, well, we are, and what's about work is the fire drill. The plan, we can tell you ahead of time, but we are most of the time in the fire drill. But again, I agree with him. Sometimes we don't properly communicate to our IT folks, tell them, hey, we're expecting medical device coming in, we need to go up and running immediately, so can you have planned this and make sure that we have the resources so we can plug it and make sure it's configured properly and safe and secure. It's coming in next Sunday and we need it to be ready by Monday for a surgery. We don't do that. We receive the device, hey, IT, can you help? So we need to improve. We're not perfect. We're cool, but not perfect. Lack of planning, which aligns with the same thing. No matter how much we plan, for them, we're not planning properly. So we need to improve on that. Doing this drill with this manager helped me a lot because I went back and I said, you know, he has a point. They are way more organized. They have processes. They mastered the organization and the planning for them. Too much to the point that it's painful to us. But we're in the exactly opposite, we're the contrast. So we can use some of that out. No IT settings documentation. We have our CMMS. We lately, maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, we started looking at documenting IP addresses and MAC addresses. Because from an IT perspective, when they look at something, they have the MAC address or IP address. They come to me saying, oh, we're seeing this device, you have an infusion pump that's having an issue. Can you identify it? I can. I don't know this MAC address, what is it related to? So they're frustrated from that perspective. This is where I start exploring that, you know, there are all these solutions today in the market that can help mitigate that, that can create that bridge between cybersecurity and all information being picked up from the network after monitoring of that data, and I can match it with my CMMS. So now I have an asset number. So I can, when they have an issue, for me, an asset number will point me directly where the device is and I can find it. So we have an issue with that. Scheduled downtimes. It was if you ask me now, I would say it was a complete failure on our side. We need to we need to bring Philips in to update the server or to change configuration or something. That means you have to get the network down and you'll not be able to send data to Epic. for 10 minutes while you reboot the PC. That's downtime. That's critical for patient care. From my perspective, we plan. This is what's going to happen tomorrow. We go to the directors of nursing areas and the managers. This is what's going to happen. We'll need you to make sure that you're still going to be able to monitor locally, but things don't too epic. So please make sure for those 10 minutes, be aware that if something happens, notify us immediately. For us, this is the max. That's how we don't need more than that. For them, they have a process, a huge process. They call it change management. And it's impressively important. It's great. We lack that. If they want to see any downtime, they spend months in planning and figuring out what's needed, what can happen, how you're going to communicate, who's going to be affected, who are the resources you're going to pull, what's all these questions, you have to answer it, and then you have to go to the change board and present your case. And if someone has a question that doesn't click to them, you're not approved, so you cannot do the work. For me, I have to do the work. I schedule pull-ups, I schedule everything, I have to do the work. No, you're not allowed. So they have a process. It's working for them, and we can definitely make use of it. Our process, just let's do it. It's not perfect. We can definitely make use of what they're doing. So we tapped into their change management and we started using it. So that was very insightful for us. So this is their complaint. They don't like alignment. So where we should be, we're on one side, they're on the other side. We don't like them, they don't like us. We don't even want to communicate. The first time I invited my organization's IT leadership to a meeting to bridge the gaps a few years ago, I would say 70% of them responded back saying, what do you need to meet us with? Why do you want to meet with us? I mean, we have nothing to talk about. So I had to force them and kind of escalate. Let's meet. Just listen to me. I'm a crazy guy. Listen to me. Maybe you'll pick me out once we're done. Just let's talk. So the biggest problem we have is the greatest enemy of communication is the illusion of it. We think we're telling them what we need. They assume that they're telling us what their needs are, and they're not seeing a response from us. We're not seeing a response from them. We assume that we have good communication with them, but they're just not responsive. But the reality is, we don't have communication. This is our problem. We're not communicating. We're not discussing. We're not sitting on the table and saying, these are my issues. These are your issues. Just like I did with my friend Corey. What are your complaints? Why you don't like us? I start defending immediately. You're not responsible. There's no way. We're the best responsive people in the world. We are biomed. Do you know what biomed is? But then once we start digging and start giving examples, you have a point. Because I'm not hearing what he's saying. I'm hearing what I like to hear. So we lack that communication, proper communication. All that we need to do is communicate. As simple as that. What we agreed upon is biomed to alert IT of changes or upgrades. We agreed that nothing will happen to anything related to the network or to the IT infrastructure, or that can affect anything being sent over the network without engaging with the IT folks. Alert us and we will help you. Also, we agreed biomed alert IT of down equipment. One of the issues we've been having is we have a down equipment. The C-arm is down. So doing troubleshooting, dealing with it, and we get everything up and running, and we want to make sure that C-arm is connected and sending data back so the doctors can review the images. But we don't tell them what's happening until everything is done, and now it's not communicating. IT, I need you now. So they said, when you have one of those devices that that the connectivity is an integral part, give us a hint. my bucky down, and we're working on it. Just FYI, in case something happened, I would like your attention. Perfect. He has it in his schedule. One huge area we cleared is gray area. It's a very common known area between biomed and IT. Everyone knows the gray area. Gray area is just an excuse by people who are not responsible to justify why they don't want to do their job. This is my definition of gray area. There is no gray area between biomed and IT. None. It's simple. Biomed, healthcare technology, ownership of everything related to medical devices. PC to operate a medical device is considered a medical device. Anything medical device, it's biomed's responsibility.
Where do you draw the line with medical device? For example, an interpreter, like an iPad on a stick.
That's going to be up to you to define what medical device is. I don't consider this as a medical device, but it's kind of internal. We don't have a universal definition of medical device yet. Hopefully we'll get there one day.
When it comes to different devices on networks, on any network I manage, if it's a managed item, it's IT. If it's not, it's not IT.
This is the gray area. This is where you get to the gray area. This means you have a gray area, which is not okay.
And another problem is that when it comes to PCs, a lot of times even on a medical device, if there's change that needs to be made, it requires certain permissions, which we don't have.
Okay, let me continue my thought. And then we'll get back to that. Okay? We own that PC. It's a medical device. I don't care what it is. I don't care what permission it needs. If it needs permissions, you are the owner. You contact IT and tell them, I need you to come in and do the work. You contact them. If you need permission, give me permission to do it, not the end user. If the end user is contacting IT, this is where the gray area falls. We don't have gray areas. It's your responsibility. End user, it's a medical device, call biomed. Biomed, we identified, oh, we have an issue with the PC, we need IT. We call IT. IT, come please help us. There's no gray area. Gray area is for someone who is on the biomed side, who doesn't want to take ownership, and he prefer it to, it's IT, let IT worry about it. No, don't do that. It's a medical device. It's my responsibility. It's even if the PC on the stress test, it's my responsibility. If I want to do something to the PC, push updates, whatever I need to do, patch, I call IT. IT, I need your help. Can you help me with this? They work with my team to get the job done. But the ownership is my ownership. It's my device, not mine. Our device. I don't own anything. IT takes orders from for medical devices from biomed only, regardless of what the request is. It's a medical device. IT now in our organization do not respond to calls for anything related to medical devices, except if it's coming from biomed. We had issues, ultrasound department, they called IT and we need to connect the ultrasounds wirelessly. It's connected by cable today and we need to connect it wirelessly. Can you help us? Before this, IT did it and they switched the connectivity to wireless. A couple of weeks later, the ultrasound calls biomed saying the ultrasound is not connected and it's not sending data to fax. So my engineer went in and checked, but there's no cable. Oh yeah, because it's wireless now. Oh really? When did you do that? Oh, a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so how can I help? Okay, let's go to IT. Why did you do that? Oh, they asked for wireless and we did it. Now, the same request came in. The IT told them, ultrasound, please reach out to biomed. My engineer went to the same folks in IT. Can we schedule a time to work on connecting this to the wireless? We worked together. Their engineer, my engineer, working there. We are aware of what's happening. It's connected. Test everything is working fine. Test all the ultrasound all over again. Everything is perfect. End user, here you go. Biomed delivered the ultrasound back to the end user. everything is working fine, it's now sending, see, we're done. Is there any gray area in that scenario? No. So don't create gray areas. Maybe 5, 10 years ago, there was gray area. Now there's none. If you disagree, let me know.
I think it comes from before, the gray area comes from before.
This is why communication between you and the IT folks can prevent that. Because up until today, we did this a couple of years ago. Up until today, sometimes clinical folks in clinical department, they call IT directly for something related to medical. But now IT know that it's a medical device, please call biomed. And sometimes, most of the time now, because we've built that relationship with them, they reach out back to us and send us an email. Hey, by the way, so-and-so reached out to us and they want to do this. Oh, thank you for letting us know. We'll reach out to them and we fix that. So,
At your location, who has the responsibility of the transmission of the EMR?
IT.
So I agree with you, there shouldn't be a gray area, but the one thing that I also identify is it's not a straight line, right? And if we've ever used the RACI tool where we look at responsibility, accountability, consulting, and informing, and we break that down, that's different between repair, between cybersecurity, and then you can take what is truly responsibility and who has accountability for that device. And I just happened to just go through this with the university, and that RACI tool helped us eliminate the gray area and find out what IT did.
I agree, it's not a straight line, but you've got to the point, there's no gray area. Because it's well defined. It's perfect. I mean, if you decide that, the PCs on the stress test, I want to give them to IT, good luck with that. You just open the door to the gray area again. But if you have situations that, this is IT, feel free to do that. But my only solution is medical device, no one touches it. They do configuration on the EKGs to connect to the wireless. IT has been always doing this for years and years and years. Today, they're not allowed to do this. The request comes to me, to my team. We call IT, work with them to make sure that we're doing the right configuration. Either we do it, or even if they want to do it, we're fine. But the request coming from us. Yes, sir.
Does, your new process, does it incorporate a different process in the IT department when you
Yes.
contact them?
Yes.
Or is there a different point of contact?
There's a different process, definitely. We're no longer going through the submit the ticket process, because now, after going through those drills, and they realized that specific group that we need the most, they realized how important their responsibility is, and they realized that they were about to be the cause of patient harm. When you're running on a treadmill and you suddenly stop it, we know this is a no-no. We have to wean them out. They realize that they're doing something that's impacting patient care. So now we have kind of the direct connection with that whole team, that we do submit tickets, but even if we didn't submit a ticket, they start responding, we start the process, and then we submit a ticket so they can take care of it. So they changed their mentality after having like almost 2 years of continuous communication. We had at one time for more than 6 months weekly meetings between all of my team and all of their team to communicate and discuss, okay, what happens in this case, what happens in that case, you know what, why didn't you tell me, why didn't you tell me? Now it's a standard that they're working on the remote side, they're trying to change the network, and they need to change where the mute med is pointing instead of this host to the other host name. Hey, Nader, by the way, we're planning to do this on this side. Let us know how you want us to do that. Do you want us to do it, or do you want to have someone from your team to come in and do it? If I'm comfortable and I trust those guys, what they're doing, they've been doing it for so long, I tell them, okay, do it, and report back to me, tell me what happened. Or I'll tell them, no, I'll send an engineer and he can do it. Give me what you wanted to point at, and we'll update that, and we'll check back with you. So we are now kind of in a way different location where we were 5 years ago, simply because of communication. We are not assuming that they know what they need, what we need, and we're not assuming we know what they need. So we build that bridges, we communicate better. They have now more belonging into the idea of patient care, that what they're doing involves patient care. We help them see that. They didn't see it in the past.
You know, is the designation of what you own as part of your device, is it based on whatever you put into your CMMS? So is that your set of, hey, here are the devices, or here's the technology that I own responsibility for? Is that kind of where you?
That can be the basic big guidelines. But again, for IT, it doesn't make much sense, because for them, the stress test is the PC and the treadmill. For us, the PC and the treadmill and the module or one unit. In CMMS, it's one line. For them, it's totally different. They don't care what it is. They only see the PC. So the base can be your inventory, but it's kind of more of the definition of medical device that you're applying in your organization. And the IT, they're very good in knowing what is a medical device, because once they receive a request for whatever it is and they're scared, it means it's a medical device. They fear it, because what if they do something wrong? They don't know what can happen. So they're afraid of it. This is where we can help, because we're not afraid. I know if I screw up, I will not put the device out, and I'm going to be 100% sure that it's working fine. So I know how to deal with it. I've been doing it. This is me. Hope you enjoyed the presentation as much as my son enjoys the cake. And still have about 10 minutes for questions or ideas.